when Dean Harrison pulled me aside after the ceremony and asked if he could speak to me privately, I had no idea my entire world was about to shatter. There I was, standing in the back of the graduation hall, wearing the Dean's family heirloom on my finger, a ring that had been in his family for generations. While across the room, my boyfriend of 6 years, Marcus, was on one knee proposing to Olivia, his study partner. The same Marcus who had cried on my shoulder when his scholarship fell through. The same man whose tuition I had paid for the last 3 years, working double shifts at the hospital and draining my savings account. "It's an investment in our future," he had said. What he didn't mention was that it wasn't going to be our future at all. I remember the day Marcus introduced me to Olivia. "She's just helping me with biochem," he insisted. I believed him because I wanted to. I believed him when he said he was studying late. I believed him when he said the perfume on his collar was from hugging a classmate, congratulating him on his exam results. The worst part? Everyone knew. His friends, her friends, even Professor Daniels had given me that pitying look when I dropped off Marcus's forgotten lunch at the lab. Everyone knew except me. 6 years ago, I met Marcus in the hospital cafeteria where I worked as a nurse. He was there visiting his grandmother, looking lost and devastated. I offered him a cup of coffee, and something just clicked between us. He had this way of looking at me that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. "I am going to be a doctor someday," he told me on our third date, his eyes filled with such passion and determination. "I just need to figure out how to afford med school first." I fell hard and fast. Marcus was brilliant, charming, and ambitious. When we moved in together after dating for just 8 months, my friends thought I was rushing things. But I knew what we had was real, or at least I thought I did. When Marcus got accepted to med school, it was like all our dreams were coming true. We celebrated with champagne and talked about our future, the practice he would open, the house we would buy, the family we would start. Then the letter came. His scholarship application had been rejected. "I don't know what I'm going to do," he said, his voice breaking as he handed me the letter. This was my only shot. I still remember the weight of that moment, seeing the man I loved with his head in his hands, his dreams crumbling before him. Without thinking twice, I said the words that would change everything. "I'll help you. We'll figure it out together." Marcus looked up at me, his eyes wide. "I can't ask you to do that, Emily." "You're not asking. I'm offering," I said firmly. "Your dreams are my dreams, remember?" The relief on his face was immediate. He pulled me into his arms, whispering thank you over and over again into my hair. I felt like a hero. His hero. The first year wasn't so bad. I picked up extra night shifts at the hospital, cut back on luxuries, and we made it work. Marcus studied constantly, and I was proud of his dedication. When he brought home his first set of straight A's, I felt like all the sacrifices were worth it. "This is just the beginning," he told me, squeezing my hand across our tiny kitchen table. "One day, I'm going to take care of you the way you're taking care of me now." By the second year, things got harder. The hospital offered me a promotion, but it meant less flexibility with my schedule. Marcus needed more money for books and lab fees. I took out a loan against my car. "Just 2 more years," I reminded myself every morning as I dragged myself out of bed after 3 hours of sleep. 2 more years and it will all be worth it. Friends stopped inviting me out because I was always working or too tired. My sister told me I was being taken advantage of, but I defended Marcus fiercely. "You don't understand what it's like to be with someone who has big dreams," I told her during one of our arguments. "Sometimes you have to sacrifice for the people you love." In the third year, Marcus started spending more time at the library. "Study groups," he said, "important networking." Then came Olivia. She was everything I wasn't, brilliant from a wealthy family and pursuing the same career path as Marcus. When he first introduced us, I noticed how her eyes lingered on him a little too long. "She's just helping me with biochem," Marcus insisted when I asked about her. I'd be failing without her. I nodded and smiled, ignoring the knot in my stomach. What could I say? I was just a nurse who worked double shifts. I couldn't help him understand complex medical theories or challenge him intellectually the way she could. As the months passed, Marcus mentioned Olivia more and more frequently. Olivia thinks this. Olivia suggests that. Did you know Olivia's father is the chief of surgery at Boston General? Still, I trusted him. I had to. We had invested too much in each other to let insecurity ruin what we had built. By this point, I was working 70 hours a week. My bank account was drained and I had maxed out 2 credit cards. But graduation was just around the corner, and Marcus had been hinting about our future more directly. After graduation, everything changes, he promised me one night as I massaged his shoulders while he studied. You've been so patient, Emily. It's almost over. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. 2 weeks before graduation, Dean Harrison called me into his office after I dropped off lunch for Marcus. I had met the dean several times at university functions, and he had always been kind to me, asking about my work at the hospital and thanking me for supporting Marcus through school. Emily, I wanted to give you something, he said, opening a small velvet box. Inside was a stunning vintage ring with a deep blue sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. This has been in my family for generations. My wife wore it until she passed, and before her, my mother. I stared at him in confusion. I don't understand. Marcus came to me last month, he explained. He told me about your sacrifice, how you've supported him through school. He asked for my blessing to propose to you at graduation. My heart nearly stopped. He's going to propose? Dean Harrison nodded, his eyes crinkling with warmth. He wanted something special, and when I mentioned my wife's ring, he thought it would be perfect. I've kept it in the family for years, but I've never seen 2 young people more deserving of a fresh start. Tears filled my eyes as I looked down at the ring. I don't know what to say. Say you'll wear it to the ceremony, he suggested. Marcus wants me to give it to you beforehand, so you can have it sized if needed, but keep it a surprise that you're wearing it. As I slipped the ring onto my finger, a perfect fit. I couldn't believe how everything was falling into place. All the long nights, all the extra shifts, all the sacrifices were leading to this moment. Graduation day arrived with perfect blue skies. I took the day off work, a rare luxury, and spent extra time getting ready. I wore a new dress I had been saving for a special occasion and, of course, the dean's ring. As I took my seat in the audience, my heart was pounding with anticipation. Would Marcus propose during his speech, after the ceremony? I couldn't stop smiling, couldn't stop twisting the ring around my finger nervously. The ceremony began with the usual speeches and awards. Marcus was graduating with honours, and I couldn't have been prouder. When they called his name and he walked across the stage to receive his diploma, I stood and cheered louder than anyone. After the ceremony, I searched for him among the crowd. That's when I saw him talking intimately with Olivia, their heads bent close together. Something about their body language made my stomach drop. Before I could reach them, Dean Harrison intercepted me, his face ashen. Emily, I need to speak with you privately. Can it wait? I asked, still trying to spot Marcus in the crowd. I need to find... No, he said firmly, taking my elbow. It can't wait. He guided me to a quiet corner of the hall, but before he could speak, a commotion erupted across the room. People were gathering in a circle, phones held high to capture something. And then I saw it. Marcus on one knee, in front of Olivia. The dean's voice faded into white noise as I watched the scene unfold before me. Emily, I've been meaning to talk to you about Marcus but I already knew what he was going to say. The ring on my finger suddenly felt impossibly heavy, like it was anchoring me to the spot while my entire world collapsed around me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The room seemed to tilt and spin around me as I watched Marcus slide a ring onto Olivia's finger. A ring that looked suspiciously like one I had seen in his sock drawer last week when I was putting away laundry. A ring I had assumed was meant for me. "I don't understand," I whispered, more to myself than to Dean Harrison. "He told you he was going to propose to me?" The Dean's face was a mask of discomfort and pity. "Emily, I am so sorry. When Marcus asked to borrow the ring, I assumed. I never thought—" He trailed off, unable to find the words. The truth hit me like a physical blow. Marcus hadn't asked for the ring to propose to me. He had borrowed it to study it, to find something similar for Olivia. And the Dean, misunderstanding his intentions, had given it to me instead. I looked down at my hand, at the beautiful heirloom that should have symbolized love and commitment, but now only represented my complete and utter humiliation. Everyone was watching Marcus and Olivia embrace. Everyone was applauding. And I was standing there wearing another woman's engagement ring. Looking back, the signs had been there all along. The late-night study sessions that stretched later and later. The texts he would hide when I entered the room. The way he stopped talking about our future and started using I instead of we when discussing his plans after graduation. 3 months ago, I had come home early from a shift to surprise him. I had picked up his favourite takeout and a bottle of wine to celebrate the end of his exams. When I opened the door to our apartment, I heard laughter coming from our bedroom. I found them sitting on our bed, the bed I had paid for surrounded by textbooks. They weren't touching, they weren't doing anything inappropriate. But the way they looked at each other, the ease and intimacy between them, made me feel like an intruder in my own home. "Emily!" Marcus had jumped up surprised. "I thought you were working until midnight." "They let me off early," I said, holding up the bags of food. "I thought we could celebrate." Olivia had smiled at me, all perfect teeth and designer clothes. "That's so thoughtful of you. I should probably get going anyway." As she gathered her books, Marcus walked her to the door. I heard them whispering in the hallway, but couldn't make out the words. When he returned, he was all smiles and gratitude, telling me how perfect my timing was, how much he needed a break. "Olivia's just helping me prepare for boards," he explained as we ate. "Her dad writes test questions for the medical board." I nodded and smiled, pushing down my discomfort. "She seems nice." "She is. You know, her family has connections at all the best hospitals. She's been introducing me to some key people." Something in his tone made me pause. "That sounds helpful." "It is. Actually, her father mentioned there might be a residency opening at his hospital. It would be an incredible opportunity." I put down my fork. "In Boston. But we talked about staying here, my job, my family." Marcus reached across the table for my hand. "It's just something to consider, Em. Nothing's decided. But opportunities like this don't come along every day." I should have seen it then, the way our dreams were slowly becoming his dreams, the way my role in his life was shifting from partner to supporter. But I was working so much, so exhausted all the time, that I convinced myself it was just graduation stress. Things would go back to normal once school was over. A burst of applause jolted me back to the present. Across the hall, Olivia was nodding tearfully as Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger. Her friends were circling around them, taking pictures, hugging them both. "Did he ever mention me?" I asked the dean, my voice barely audible. "In all his talks about the future, about proposing, did he ever say my name?" Dean Harrison's silence was answer enough. I looked around the crowded hall, suddenly seeing familiar faces in a new light. Professor Daniels, who had always given me that pitying look. Marcus's classmate, who had grown increasingly awkward around me in recent months. Even the department secretary who had once, accidentally, called me Olivia when I dropped off Marcus's lunch. They had all known. All of them. For how long? Is everything okay? A woman's voice cut through my thoughts. I turned to find Olivia's mother standing beside us, champagne in hand, looking concernedly at my tear-streaked face. Before Dean Harrison could answer, another voice joined the conversation. Mum, have you seen my... Olivia stopped short when she saw me, her newly adorned hand flying to her throat. Oh, hello. Her eyes dropped to my hand, to the ring that matched her own in design, if not in size. The colour drained from her face. You must be Emily, she said quietly, Marcus's roommate. Roommate. 6 years of my life, thousands of dollars in debt, countless sacrificed opportunities, all reduced to roommates. Actually, I said, finding my voice at last, I'm his girlfriend of 6 years. The shock on both their faces might have been satisfying if I hadn't been so devastated. Olivia's mother took an instinctive step back, while Olivia herself seemed frozen in place. That can't be right, Olivia stammered. Marcus told me you were an old friend who needed a place to stay, that you were helping with rent while looking for a new job. I let out a hollow laugh. Is that what he told you? I've been paying the entire rent and his tuition and his car payments for 3 years. Olivia's face crumpled. But he said his scholarship. He said his family. He lost the scholarship after the first year, I said, each word like glass in my throat. His family hasn't contributed a dime. It's been all me. There you are! Marcus's voice boomed across the space between us. He was beaming, practically floating on his success, until he saw who I was talking to, until he saw the ring on my finger. His face went through a series of emotions so quickly I might have missed them if I hadn't been staring right at him. Surprise, fear, calculation, and finally, a practiced concern. Emily, he said carefully, reaching for me, I've been looking everywhere for you. I stepped back. Have you? That's interesting. I would have thought you'd be busy with your fiancé. His eyes darted between me, Olivia, and the dean. I could almost see the gears turning in his head, trying to find a way out of this situation. Let's talk privately, he suggested, his voice low and urgent. This isn't the place. I think this is exactly the place, I countered, my voice growing stronger with each word. In front of all these people who watched you use me for years. All of these people who knew what you were doing and said nothing. By now, a small crowd had gathered around us. I recognised faces from the hospital where I worked, friends I had neglected because I was always picking up extra shifts to pay for Marcus's education. They were watching with wide eyes and open mouths as years of deception unravelled in public. Marcus grabbed my arm, his fingers digging painfully into my skin. You're making a scene, he hissed. Think about what you're doing. No, Marcus, I replied, pulling free of his grip. I'm done thinking about what I'm doing. I've spent 6 years thinking about what I'm doing for you. Your tuition, your books, your car payments, your food, your clothes, even that suit you're wearing right now. I paid for it. Olivia had gone completely pale. Is this true? She asked him. Have you been lying to me this entire time? Marcus looked trapped. Olivia, baby, it's complicated. Emily and I were together a long time ago, but things changed. I was going to tell you everything. When? I cut in. After the wedding. After you convinced her father to get you that residency. Or were you planning to keep me around a bit longer to help pay off your student loans? The facade finally cracked. Marcus's charming smile disappeared, replaced by cold fury. You knew what you were signing up for, he snapped. I never promised you anything. The cruelty of his words silenced the murmuring crowd. Even Olivia looked shocked. You promised me everything, I whispered. A future, a family, a life together. He laughed, a sound so devoid of warmth it sent chills down my spine. And you believed me? Come on, Emily. Look at you and look at me. You had to know this was temporary. Olivia took a step back from him, her expression hardening. What is that supposed to mean, Marcus? He ignored her, his focus entirely on me. You should be grateful, he continued. Do you think you could have done better than me? A nurse with no ambition beyond working at that same hospital forever? I gave you purpose. I gave you something to work for. Each word was a knife, but strangely, they didn't hurt as much as I expected. Instead, they clarified everything. In his cruelty, Marcus had finally shown me his true self, the self he had hidden beneath charm and promises for 6 long years. I looked down at the dean's ring on my finger, then back at Marcus. You're right about one thing, I said calmly. This was always temporary, but not for the reasons you think. I slid the ring off my finger and held it out to Dean Harrison. This belongs to your family, I said, not to me, and certainly not to him. The dean took it, his expression grave. I'm so sorry, Emily. If I had known. I shook my head. You couldn't have known. None of us could have. He's very good at what he does. Marcus made a grab for Olivia's hand. Baby, don't listen to her. She's just jealous. Olivia yanked her hand away. Don't touch me, she said, her voice shaking. And don't call me that. She pulled the ring from her finger and threw it at his chest. I don't know who you are. As she walked away, her parents following close behind, Marcus turned back to me, desperation replacing his earlier cruelty. Emily, please. You know I care about you. We can work this out. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time I saw not the brilliant, charming man I thought I loved, but a hollow shell, a taker who had built his success on the backs of others, on my back. Goodbye, Marcus, I said simply. As I turned to walk away, he called after me. What about our apartment? Your things, we need to talk about... I kept walking. I'll send someone for my things. The apartment is paid up through next month. Consider it a graduation gift. His voice turned frantic. Emily, you can't just leave like this. Where are you going? What am I supposed to do now? I paused at the door and looked back at him one last time. I don't know, Marcus. Maybe get a job? As I pushed open those heavy doors and felt the spring air on my face, a strange sensation washed over me. For the first time in years, I felt lighter, unburdened, free. The future I had planned was gone, but so was the weight of carrying someone who had never intended to carry me in return. I had lost everything, my savings, my relationship, years of my life. But standing there in the warm sunshine, I realized something profound. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find yourself. And I was just getting started. I stirred my coffee absently, watching the world continue turning outside the window. 1 week since graduation. 1 week since my life had imploded in spectacular fashion. The story had spread throughout the hospital where I worked. Whispers following me down corridors, pitying glances from colleagues who had watched me work myself to exhaustion for a man who had betrayed me. My phone buzzed with another text from Marcus. I hadn't blocked his number yet, though I couldn't exactly explain why. Perhaps some masochistic part of me needed to see him unravel, to watch as the carefully constructed facade of his life crumbled without me there to hold it together. Please call me, the message read. They're asking for first month's rent and security deposit. I can't afford this on my own. I put the phone face down on the table without responding. Let him figure it out. Let him feel, even for a moment, what it was like to worry about money the way I had for years. Is this seat taken? I looked up to find Dean Harrison standing beside my table, his expression gentle. I gestured to the empty chair across from me. How did you find me? I asked as he sat down. Small town, he replied with a shrug. And you mentioned once that they make the best cinnamon rolls here. I nodded, remembering a conversation from months ago when I had brought treats to a faculty meeting. The dean had a good memory. How are you holding up? He asked after ordering his own coffee. Honestly, I don't know, I admitted. Some moments I feel liberated. Others, you feel like you've wasted years of your life, he finished for me. I nodded, unexpected tears springing to my eyes. 6 years, all my savings, opportunities I passed up because they didn't fit with his plans. Dean Harrison was quiet for a moment, stirring his coffee thoughtfully. I've been teaching for 30 years, he said finally, and in that time, I've seen thousands of students come through those doors. Some are brilliant, some are hardworking, some are both. He paused, meeting my gaze. Marcus was brilliant, but he wasn't hardworking, not in the ways that matter. He took shortcuts, used people. That kind of success doesn't last. It's lasted him through med school, I pointed out. For now, the dean agreed, but character catches up with everyone eventually. Trust me on that. We sat in companionable silence for a few minutes. Outside, spring was in full bloom, the sidewalks bustling with people enjoying the weather. I've been meaning to ask you something, Dean Harrison said after a while. Have you ever considered going back to school yourself? I laughed bitterly. With what money? Marcus drained every cent I had. There are scholarships, grants, programs specifically designed for people in your situation. I raised an eyebrow. My situation? People with real-world experience who want to further their education, he clarified. The nursing program at the university has a partnership with the hospital. They'll pay for advanced degrees in exchange for a commitment to work there after graduation. My heart skipped a beat. I've always wanted to become a nurse practitioner, I admitted. But Marcus said... I stopped myself, realising how many of my sentences had begun that way over the years. Marcus said we couldn't afford it. Marcus said it wasn't the right time. Marcus said my job was good enough as it was. Marcus said a lot of things, Dean Harrison noted dryly. Maybe it's time to stop listening to Marcus and start listening to yourself. I remembered my first day on the job as a registered nurse. The pride I'd felt in my crisp new uniform, the sense of purpose, the knowledge that I was genuinely helping people. I had wanted it to go further, to specialise, to grow in my career. But then I met Marcus, and somehow my ambitions had taken a back seat to his. Before Marcus, I told Dean Harrison, I was accepted into a nurse practitioner programme. Full scholarship. I turned it down because he got into med school in a different state, and I wanted to support him. The dean nodded, unsurprised. And now, I took a deep breath. Now, I don't know, starting over at 30 seems young, he interrupted firmly. 30 is young, Emily, and you're not starting over. You're continuing what you always wanted to do before someone else's dreams overshadowed yours. I felt something stir inside me. A flicker of the ambition and determination I had once possessed in abundance. Before Marcus. Before I became someone whose only purpose was to support someone else's goals. 2 days later, I found myself in the office of the hospital's education coordinator, a stack of programme brochures spread before me. The application deadline for the fall semester is in 2 weeks, she explained, highlighting a date on the calendar. Your work record here is excellent, and with your experience, you'd be a strong candidate for the scholarship programme. I flipped through the materials, my mind racing with possibilities. Nurse practitioner, specialised training, a substantially higher salary. Everything I had put on hold for Marcus was suddenly within reach again. What about my current position? I asked. I can't afford to stop working completely. The programme is designed for working professionals, she assured me. Classes are evenings and weekends, and we can adjust your shifts to accommodate your schedule. It seemed too good to be true. After years of arranging my life around someone else's needs, the idea that an entire institution would rearrange things for me was almost unbelievable. As I left her office with an application form in hand, I ran into Dr. Chen, one of the attending physicians I had worked with for years. "Emily," he said warmly, "I heard you were here. Got a minute to talk?" We ducked into an empty consultation room, where Dr. Chen wasted no time getting to the point. "I owe you an apology," he said simply. "I knew about Marcus and Olivia. Many of us did. And none of us said anything." I swallowed hard. "Why not?" He sighed heavily. "Medical circles are small. People don't like to get involved in personal matters. It was wrong, and I'm sorry." I nodded, uncertain how to respond. Part of me wanted to rage at him, at all of them who had watched me sacrifice everything for a man who was betraying me. But another part recognized the complicated nature of workplace relationships and the hesitance to interfere. "I appreciate your honesty," I said finally. "Better late than never, I suppose." Dr. Chen gestured to the application in my hand. "Nurse practitioner program?" "I'm thinking about it," I admitted. "Do it," he said immediately. "You're one of the best nurses I've worked with. You have excellent clinical judgment and a natural rapport with patients." He paused, then added, "And, for what it's worth, several of us would be happy to write letters of recommendation." I blinked back tears. "Thank you. That means a lot." My new apartment was half the size of the one I had shared with Marcus, but it was mine. All mine. I'd used what little savings I had left for the deposit and had furnished it sparsely, with second-hand finds and a few treasured pieces I'd taken from the old place. As I unpacked the last box, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Olivia. Got your number from the hospital directory. Can we talk?" My stomach clenched. The last person I wanted to hear from was the woman Marcus had chosen over me. But curiosity won out, and I agreed to meet her at a park near the hospital the next day. She was already waiting when I arrived, sitting on a bench looking as polished and put together as ever. But there was something different about her, a wariness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "Thank you for meeting me," she said as I sat beside her. "I wanted to apologise." I shook my head. "You don't owe me an apology. You didn't know." "That's just it," she replied, her voice tight with emotion. "I think part of me did know. There were inconsistencies in his stories, things that didn't add up, but I ignored them because you wanted to believe him," I finished for her. "I know the feeling." She nodded, blinking back tears. "He told me you were just roommates, that you were an old friend who needed a place to stay. When I asked why you were always working, he said you were saving for a trip to Europe." I laughed despite myself. "The only trip I was saving for was his trip through medical school." "Did you break up with him?" I asked finally. "Immediately," she confirmed, though he didn't go quietly. He's been calling my parents, trying to salvage the relationship and probably the connections that came with it. I wasn't surprised. Marcus had always been strategic about his relationships. "And your parents?" "Furious," she said with a wry smile. "My father has contacts at every major hospital in the region. He's made some calls. Marcus might find his job prospects significantly limited." I should have felt satisfaction at this news, but instead I felt strangely hollow. Revenge, it seemed, wasn't as satisfying as I had imagined it would be. "What about you?" Olivia asked. "I heard you're applying to the nurse practitioner program." News really did travel fast in this town. "Thinking about it," I acknowledged. "It's what I wanted to do before." "Before Marcus," she finished. "You should do it. Don't let what happened stop you from moving forward." Coming from her, the encouragement felt genuine. We were both victims of the same man's manipulation, both trying to rebuild our lives from the wreckage he had left behind. 2 weeks later, I sat in Dean Harrison's office. my completed application before me. I had spent every spare moment working on it, refining my personal statement, gathering recommendations, preparing for the entrance exam. "Are you ready?" he asked. I took a deep breath and nodded, as ready as I'll ever be. As he collected the papers, a soft knock came at the door. The education coordinator from the hospital peeked in. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, "but I thought Emily might want to hear this news right away. The hospital board just approved additional funding for the scholarship program. They're doubling the number of spots for this fall." Dean Harrison grinned at me. "Your chances just improved significantly." As I left the office, my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Just heard about your application. Don't you think it's a little late to start over? Maybe we should talk about us instead." I felt a surge of anger, followed quickly by pity. Even now, he was trying to control my narrative, to pull me back into his orbit. But unlike before, I could see through it. I typed a quick response. "There is no us, Marcus. There's you and there's me, and I'm choosing me." Then I blocked his number. The acceptance letter arrived on a Tuesday. I had just finished a 12-hour shift and was too exhausted to even check my mail until the following morning. But there it was, official university letterhead offering me a full scholarship to the nurse practitioner program. I sat on my tiny balcony, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise as I read and reread the letter. It was the first time I had cried since the day of graduation, but these were different tears. Tears of relief, of validation, of possibility. My phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. We had developed an unexpected friendship over the past months, bonded by our shared experience and mutual recovery. "Heard the good news from my mum. Hospital board. Celebratory dinner tonight?" I smiled, typing back a quick, "Absolutely." Later that day, I passed by the university on my way to work. Construction crews were setting up for the fall semester, cleaning windows and planting fresh flowers around the medical school building. A group of new students were touring the campus, looking excited and terrified in equal measure. I wondered if Marcus had found a residency yet. According to hospital gossip, his options had suddenly become very limited after the truth about his deception came to light. Olivia's father had kept his word about making some calls. But strangely, I found I didn't care anymore. Marcus was part of my past now, a painful chapter, but one that was firmly closed. As I continued toward the hospital, I caught a glimpse of myself reflected in a storefront window. I looked different somehow, stronger, more confident. The woman who had stood frozen in shock at graduation was gone, replaced by someone who knew her own worth. I had lost so much, years, money, opportunities. But in losing everything, I had found myself again. And this time, I wasn't letting go. That evening, as Olivia and I celebrated over dinner, she raised her glass in a toast. "To new beginnings," she said. I clinked my glass against hers. "And to hard-earned wisdom." We both knew what she meant when she added, "and to dodging bullets." As we laughed, I realised that while Marcus had taken so much from me, he had inadvertently given me something precious in return. The knowledge that I was stronger than I had ever imagined. That I could rebuild. That I could thrive. And I was just getting started.